Hello and welcome back to 1874. You know Jacob Tanswell's here because he's typing furiously on the keyboard whilst the intro plays. This is a match preview show. Villa head to Crystal Palace, Selhurst Park tomorrow night. That's Tuesday night. I don't know why I felt the need to clarify the day. Everyone knows it's Monday. Who's watching live? But if you do go on to listen or watch, yes, Tuesday night is the game when Villa are playing Crystal Palace. This show is supposed to be sponsored by Luke Roper, but it's actually sponsored by NordVPN because the branding has not changed. So if you do want to get a huge discount and 4 months free off NordVPN, then head to 1874.io, and it's completely risk-free because Nord offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Right then, I've already done a show today with Greg looking back on the Chelsea victory at the weekend, so do go and listen to or watch that if you haven't done so already. But of course, there is a game on Tuesday, as I've just said, so it is time to preview the game. And we've got a fresh Jacob Tanswell who's just back from Bodymore Heath. Jacob, how was your trip?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, not too bad. The sun's shining now, isn't it? It was pretty terrible earlier, but Bodymore always seems to bring the sun. Emery was, we've seen a lot of him, aren't we? 5 games in 14 days. Press conference.
Bit of a press conferences, in fairness.
Press conference before and afterwards. I try to ask slightly different questions to, injury news and broadcast section, but there's a lot of journalists and you're limited to 2 questions. That's a club policy, so you can't really always get into the best stuff. But
I thought it was one. I thought it was one now.
It might be 1, but a maximum of 2. I went for 2 today and didn't get told off. So, but it's always good to go and you kind of get a feeling around the place. The reason why I go is not so much for the questions anymore. It's more of a case of talking to people, getting the feeling of what's going on, seeing players drive in for the afternoon training session. But Emery was okay. Obviously, the injury news is probably the biggest takeaway from the broadcast section, really, in terms of obviously. Konsa's fine after his return the other day. Mings and Rodgers. Emery does his typical, what he's become doing lately, actually. We'll see after training. He's become very cautious about revealing 50-50s. And he always uses the old we'll see after training card. But if I had to guess, I'd probably say Rodgers is included in the squad and Mings isn't. But I think the good news is that Pau Torres could be coming back to training this week or next week. So hopefully he's not too far away as well. But Ross Barkley's still out.
And Nana's got a few weeks left.
And of course,
hasn't he? So you say about Mings. I thought you looked quite frustrated to come off on Saturday. I don't know whether it was frustration, as if to say, not again. Why am I injured again? Why can't I catch a break? But it looked to me as if he was thinking, well, I'm okay. I can play. I don't need to come off. But of course, he did come off for Lamar Bogard. You'd assume if there's any type of worry around him, poor Lamar Bogard, it won't be him. Comes in, it'll be Axel Disasi, who naturally a left-footed centre half, and Phil Emery doesn't really want to play people who aren't left-footed on the left. But if Mings is out, he's obviously going to have to.
Yeah, and he said it a number of times. He's obviously always wanting a left footer on the left. But I think Lamar Bogard was brilliant the other day, and I asked actually about Bogard in my questions. Obviously, he's embargoed till 10:30, and although he didn't say too much, people are very wary of breaking embargoes. But on the left side centre back issue, obviously, you'd rather have a left footer there. But Disasi and Konsa, I think Konsa can probably play there. The question is, would you want to take him out of the right side centre back position? But he seemed pretty assured when he played for England in the Euros on the left, right? And for a guy that's going to be the senior, partner in their pairing, you probably say he would be the one that would go on the left. So I personally go for Konsa on the left, but Disasi, it seems to be very confident, very good in taking the ball with him, driving into the middle third. So he could play there as well. But that's certainly the issue. And against a team that Crystal Palace, who have caused issues for Villa in the last 3 or 4 games, really, have scored lots of goals. And Mateta, in both league games last year, caused all sorts of problems as well, didn't he?
There was a point before Mateta's complete upturn in the last 12 months where he only scored against Villa. He hadn't scored loads of goals for Crystal Palace, but he'd scored a few against Villa. Typically, over the years, he's been the type of striker that Villa have actually struggled against. Disasi, it feels like, would be a nice one for this game. I feel like he would relish the battle, and he'd have a nice stint up the left wing against Liverpool. Maybe he could move to the left hand side, Jacob.
Yes, exactly what I think. Maybe obviously he's not left-footed, but at the same time he can still drive with the ball forward in a similar way to what Harry Maguire used to do from the left when he was especially at Leicester. But yeah, Disasi, it's got its work cut out really against the Crystal Palace team who, I've looked at the last 3 or 4 games, and of course, real big issues to Villa with the wing-back system, how they're so wide and it kind of pulls Villa's narrow defensive shape apart. And at the same time, I think they've only failed to score in one of the last 15 games as well. And given Villa's clean sheet record, it does seem like Villa will probably need to score 2 or 3 to win the game.
Yeah, and Villa, of course, have got lots of games coming up. They've had lots of games in the last week as well. If we just go through the team. So we think, obviously, Martinez in goal, and then Konsa and Disasi, which way around to be confirmed, but we think they'll be centre halves. I think Cash will play right back again, or do you think Garcia will come back in? Obviously, we've got a game on Friday, which is a quick turnaround, really.
I think you've got to be quite careful of Cash, right? Because if you play him in succession games, or if you play him in 3 games in 10 days or whatever, he does break down. He's shown that in the last 18 months, 2 years. So, ordinarily, I'd probably say go for Cash, but at the same time, you've got to be very careful with him. He's got problematic hamstrings, groin issues, and that, lots of different muscle injuries that he has picked up in the last 12 to 18 months. So I think he might go for Garcia and then play Cash against Cardiff, but they're probably going to share, aren't they, the next 2 games?
Yeah, left back. I think it'll be Luca Dean for this
one. Has to be Luca Dean
against Cardiff. You would think. It's the thing now. You've got to try and manage it and work out who's going to play where. I mean, there's a game coming up in 2-3 days' time.
You have to play Luca Dean. You have to play Luca Dean because Maatsen, he got better in the second half, but defensively 1v1, he's got a lot to work on. And against a team like Palace, who will break and drive at you like Neto did for Chelsea, I think you have to play Luca Dean.
Yeah, look, he had a nice 90-minute rest, didn't he? Anyway, in the last game, look at him. He didn't come off the bench. Unfortunately, nobody will be getting a rest in central midfield because there isn't anyone else. John McGinn and Yuri Tillemans will continue to pick up the baton in midfield. Tillemans, I feel sorry for Tillemans and Rodgers. They're literally probably the only 2 that haven't had a rest all the way through the season. They just have to keep going and going. I mean, Tillemans in particular, he's just an absolute warrior, and at the moment, I think he's a certainty for player of the season. So it has to be them 2 in there. Watkins will play up front, I guess, coming off towards the end of the game. In the last match, it's the 3 positions behind that are interesting. How do you think Unai will go for this one?
Yeah, I think he'll play Rashford off the left. Off the right is anyone's guess, really. I'd probably say Donyell Marlin deserves to start at some point.
He's so good,
Yeah, obviously he's really good coming off the bench. He makes a good impact. But I think with Rodgers being 50-50, he probably does need a rest or, be on the bench to start off with. And having a guy like Marlin, who is obviously has got good pace, he can threaten him behind. But I just think with Palace's 3 centre-backs, if they can go 3v3 on their backline at times with the pace of Rashford, Watkins and Marlin, I think they can really stretch him behind and have real good success as well. So I'd probably say him, and then Asensio scored 2. Do you want to continue his form, or do you think he's still acclimatizing, maybe he needs a little bit of time away? But I'd probably say Asensio starts. But again, I think Jacob Ramsey's been the player sacrifice since the 2 new signings arrived.
Yeah, it's going to be. I suppose much will depend on Rodgers. I think if Rodgers is fit, he plays and then doesn't play on Friday potentially against Cardiff, but he's played a hell of a lot of games already. This has pretty much been non-stop for 12, 13 months now for Morgan Rodgers. He's played an awful lot of football, probably more football than Villa ever imagined that he would play when they first signed him. But in fairness, he's been that good. So, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. I thought in the last game, actually, Villa used the bench really, really well. Greg and I spoke about it earlier. I thought Bailey and Marlon were the difference makers in the end. They carried Villa over the line. Any chance Bailey plays from the right?
And do you know what? I think Bailey's got a real good chance because I've been trying to find out why Unai's continued to play Leon Bailey through this obviously pretty prolonged dip in form. And there's a few good reasons for it. I think you look at Jack Grealish at Man City last year, or when they won the Champions League. He attracts players towards him and he just gives that good balance. And I think Leon Bailey does the same. He's a very different player to even Marlon. Marlon would prefer to be a bit more central, where Bailey can really hold the width. The issue is, I don't think you can play Rashford and Bailey because they both will be quite wide. You need one of them to be kind of a 10, kind of coming inside. So, I think Leon Bailey's got a good shout, but at the same time, if Rashford plays, it probably doesn't quite work.
So basically, Rashford plays wide left. Bailey's not going to play those games. Is what you're telling me. But then I suppose Marlon would be asked to hold width, or would he be coming inside if he was to play there?
Yeah, I think he can hold width at the same time. What Emery wants Rashford and Marlon to do is to make those out to win runs in. So if Marlon does play, you probably need the overlap off the right back. Bailey's one of the few that can really just hold the width all the time, really. So I think Bailey had his probably best 20 minutes, didn't he?
He was really good.
Yeah, Emery said it as well. He singled him out, and I think he does need a bit of confidence because he's probably felt like the forgotten guy at times. He signed a new contract last year. Obviously, Diaby left. That's a real good bit of validation that Emery saw him as the key man. But obviously, with the new signings coming in, 3 attackers coming in, he's kind of been left in the background a little bit. So it was a good performance just to show people and just to remind people, really.
I think I said a few weeks ago on here, actually, that the competition would be good for Bailey, having a few extra attacking bodies, because I think he needed a kick up the bum. And I think it'll give him that kick up the bum. And if it's anything to go by how he played on Saturday when he came, and I think it will be a good thing. I thought he reacted well last season to competition, and I think he's actually not been as good when he knows he's going to play every week, complete polar opposite to Ollie Watkins. I think Bailey needs that competition in there and needs Villa to have those attacking options. And there's no doubt at the moment Villa have got that. They've got problems in other areas of the pitch, but all their attackers that they've got to choose from. And the good thing is they can just impact the game so well from the bench now. Whoever plays, they're going to have excellent options on the bench. King Aries has just said here, Jacob, Barkley just said he has had an MCL tear on Jacob's ex-post.
Well, let's have a look.
Go on, let's say you've interacting with the staff. Jacob,
react in real time.
Let's have a look. I would be surprised if a Villa player responded to you on social media.
Why would you say that? Yeah, he responded.
Oh, has he? What's he said?
He said MCL tear, calf happened trying to play on with knee issues, not far off.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Good. Well done, Ross. Ross updating us as we go. Ross, have you got any information on whether ask him whether Rodgers and Mings have trained this afternoon, Jake?
He's got his notifications on for me.
He just wants to join the show, have a chat as well. Tell him he's welcome to come on and have a talk with us.
I think we all knew that Barkley's calf wasn't a calf injury, because if it was a calf injury, he would have been back ages ago, right? But at the same time, you weren't quite sure what it was. But it's nice that Ross Barkley confirmed it himself when Villa have been trying to keep everything quite secret.
He'll probably be in a little bit of trouble then, Jacob. I would wager.
This is not my fault, though, is it? Just simply tweeting out what people say.
You're only reporting the news, aren't you? You're not creating it. You're reporting it. But now we do know, thanks to Jacob and Ross Barkley's conflab on social media, we know what is wrong with Ross Barkley and that he's not too far off. So thank you, King Aries, for bringing that to our attention. Much appreciated. Let's talk a little bit about our opponents. Then I've been to Selhurst Park a few times and watched Villa have some absolute honking games against Crystal Palace. I did also witness Steven Gerrard's second game, I think, and we won there. I was there on that occasion. But Palace are flying away from home and have actually picked up generally, haven't they, Crystal Palace? I always thought it was a matter of time before they got going, because I think they've got a decent squad and I think they've got a good manager. And I think the problems they had at the start of the season was just trying to integrate a lot of new players into their first team. They obviously lost a few big players in the summer as well. Elise was a huge loss. Joachim Andersen at the back was a huge loss as well. So they've kind of had to rebuild on the fly. They were kind of rebuilding at the start of the season and integrating new players, as I say. But I always thought as the season went on, they would get better. And that's the case now. And to me, it feels like they're the kind of team that always cause Villa problems. They've got quite a lot of flying wingers. They play with a lot of width. They play with a lot of pace and power. And to me, that's just the kind of side that Villa don't like playing against.
Yeah, I really like the way Palace play. I think obviously Oliver Glasman's been there for over a year now, and they've accrued something in the mid-50s in terms of points, and that's fantastic total for a team like Palace, who perennially feel like they're 12th. I think the way they play as well, like you say, the wing-backs are really aggressive when they have the ball.
Munoz is like a striker.
They'll go onto the last line. Munoz, especially if Mitchell's a little bit more conservative. But then they've got a back three, which last year looked really sharp, and they've had to replace, obviously, Anderson, but Chalobah as well, who has really good start to the season. He got recalled, so they've had to fudge it a little bit there. And the way their wingers play is they kind of move into the two number 10 positions of flank Mateta, because obviously the wing backs provide the width. So, and they're really good on transition. You saw that against Villa in the league game when Sarr just ran through.
He's a bogey player for Villa, as well.
He just ran through. They're very direct. I like the way they play. They haven't got huge depth, and I think their midfield can be a overcrowded. They're quite functional midfielders, but at the same time, when you get into the front three, Eze, he's the guy that sets everything up. I think they're a real handful. And you saw last year, although Villa were on the beach, the final day of the season, they absolutely tore Villa apart, didn't they, for a lot of that game?
Yeah, Palace have. This is going to sound disrespectful, and I don't mean it to at all. Palace always, I feel they're at their best when they've got kind of a journeyman midfielder in there. I think it used to be James MacArthur. It was kind of that journeyman midfielder who always performed for them. Don't know how much of Palace you've seen this season, but when I have watched them, and I do a lot of reading about all the teams and read about Palace, the man who seems to have stood out that the fans seem to love this season is Will Hughes. He hasn't really stood out in the past for Crystal Palace, but this season he's been the player that the Crystal Palace fans seem to like, and he's got a lot of plaudits actually from what I've seen.
Do you know what? I've actually watched a lot of Palace this season, probably one of the most. Villa and Brentford, for some reason, I just watched those three quite a lot.
It's a good job you've watched a lot of Villa, Jacob, because you are a job. So if you would have watched more Palace than Villa, that would have been a bit of a strange thing.
I thought I would mention Villa in there just in case. With Will Hughes, I think he's left-footed, isn't he? And I always like the way he just keeps everything quite simple. He knows he's not the most flashy. He just gets the ball. He's tenacious. He's a better Sam Morsey. I don't like Morsey. I think he's a poor player. But I think with Will Hughes, he does what he does for the team. A good guy. And he's selfless. I think he was underappreciated at Wolves. At Watford. I remember him being this young gun at Derby that everyone talked about, but since then he's kind of leveled out, and actually he's been quite underappreciated. But he knows his strengths, he knows his game inside out, and he just seems like a workhorse really. Him and John McGinn are quite similar in what they provide to the team. Yeah.
Be interesting to see how he does in the midfield battle. Like I say, Villa can't change their midfield at the moment. They could have to keep going with what they've got. But this is a tough game. But Villa are carrying a little bit of momentum now, Jacob. They had a couple of good results after the bloody annoying Ipswich game that still irks me. But they've had a couple of good results, putting a real kind of fighting performance on Sunday. They were electric in the second half. Really tried to win, and did win the game, which was great to see. But they need back-to-backs, don't they, to get themselves up the league and really kind of cement this challenge for the top 4, top 5.
Yeah.
Villa need back-to-backs. It doesn't feel like that's something that we've done too often this season. No. Maybe at the start we did, but maybe since October, I would wager, Villa haven't done back-to-backs.
4 times this season they've back-to-back, and 2 of them came in September.
When was the last back-to-back, do you know?
It's a game where it was the run where they beat Southampton and then another team.
Brentford,
that time. What was that, December,
yeah.
Yeah, so not since then. And Villa, if they want to go on a remarkable run of form which secures a top 5 finish, they need to start stringing fixed victories together. The odd one against Chelsea and then poor performance at Selhurst Park will be kind of futile, won't it? And this is the type of game, although Palace are good and Selhurst Park seems to be a kryptonite, Villa have got a lot of tough games coming up, and there's a lot of games where they've got to dig in and get 3 points. A draw will not be sufficient.
Draws are no good for us either.
No, not because Villa have left a lot of them for them to do, really, haven't they? With the amount of drop points in home games, so they need to start turning draws into wins and start keeping clean sheets. I don't know how they're going to do it, but hopefully if they keep one at Selhurst Park, then it'll be like London buses. A few more will come. So yeah, they need to win, and I think they need to set themselves the pressure of going to Selhurst Park, and as Emery says, to dominate the game.
It needs an Everton away performance, doesn't it? When we went there and won 1-0, something we've barely done all season. But he does need something along those lines. I think though, we're worried about injuries and fitness and fatigue and whatnot. But realistically, this is what the players play football for, and this is what we all support Aston Villa for. And we've died for time. We'd have died for times like this. In the next week we've got Premier League Tuesday, and we've got FA Cup Friday, Champions League Tuesday. I think it is. The games are coming around fast, and we're worried about all those things that I just mentioned. But these are great times, and we should embrace it. And we should be excited by it. And it's always great when there is a lot of games generally.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd rather be in this position than battling for your life, or be a Southampton supporter, Dan. So you'd rather be in this position. But Villa needs to get into May or the end of April at the very least, and still think they've got a chance of getting the top 4, top 5. That's it. That's the aim. And if they can do that, and then you'd back Villa to do it in a race from a standing start. So I think Villa should go there, should be very dominant, very confident. But again, if these weaknesses defensively continue, then I think it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, I said earlier with Greg that there's going to be a team that times their run in the last third of the season perfectly and guarantees themselves Champions League football. And I really just hope it's us. And there's no reason why it can't be with the quality that we've got amongst the squad. And we do seem to be just about getting away with injuries at the moment. Every time someone is injured or is unavailable, we just about get someone back to cover it. So we have just about got away with it. And we have also got Lamar Bogard, who seems to be able to fill in everywhere as well. So we are getting away with it a little bit. We just need the results, and we could really do with the result on Tuesday night. Have you got a hot take, Jacob, or a freezing cold take for us?
Axel Disasi scores.
We are hopeless at this, aren't we? We don't ever get anything right.
Axel Disasi scores from near post flick.
I mean, you didn't need to be so specific. I think it was okay just to say Axel Disasi scores, Jacob. I don't think you needed to go the length that you did. What am I going to go with?
Anything concerning Rashford? Or
he's going to have to score soon, isn't he?
Yeah, you do wonder.
Have to get that first goal. I'm going to go for Villa to win from behind with Athletic, with Marcus Rashford.
Is that a hot take?
Scoring a goal. Yeah,
they always conceive.
Most points recovered from losing positions. I saw most set-piece goals as well. Are you upset you didn't come up with an Austin McThree point on
Are you? I'm not sure. I think Austin McPhee's done very well for Villa, but I'm not sure that was the most inventive corner routine. Was it the elder short corner? Rashford.
No. We spoke about this earlier. It was the Brentford a few years ago recycled. You may not remember because you weren't covering us at the time, but it was a recycled set piece from a few years ago, actually.
A 1-2 from a corner. Everyone's done
still in the play, but there's lots of. That's a bit basic, Jake. I'm surprised at you. You know a lot more goes on than that. There's a lot more to do with blocking and movement and timing than what you've just said.
Maybe Greg wants to give Austin McPhee more credit for that game and for that routine, and maybe. So, but I think you can't compensate. You can't plan for Jorgensen's the ball squirming under him, right? And I just think it's a short corner. I used to take them in under nines. So, McPhee's done a lot of really good creative set plays. That was one of the more basic ones. But if obviously he did told Rashford to take it short, brilliant. Well done to him.
When did you become the cynical one and Greg became the fun one? Honestly, what?
It was a good. It was What's happened here? It was nice. It was a nice cross from Rashford. Good connection from Asensio. But let's not pretend that it was some sort of magic potion. It was a 1-2 from a corner. But they scored.
The other way quite questionable as well. I can't remember what it was now. You did, or was that Greg? I feel like you did something. Yeah, David Stiles is right.
I said about the Wolves penalty. No, McPhee is.
Take Austin's name out of your mouth. He's a set piece wizard. You listen to that. You listen to.
Do you know what? I'm enamoured by the amount of creative set plays McPhee comes up with. I think some of them are absolutely fantastic. But that one, you can give just credit to Rashford in a sense. So there is a place with gut instinct at sometimes. Not everything's pre-choreographed.
Wow.
But it wasn't. That's absolutely great. But it wasn't the most difficult to practice on the training ground, is it? It's probably a 2-minute drill, maybe 1-2. Just ask Marcus to do a 1-2 and then cross it.
We've gone way too long on this.
But no, it's done fantastic, and I'm glad that Villa started to shoot directly from free kicks as well, showing with Watkins' goal a couple of games back.
Yeah, well, they've got someone to take them now, which they don't tend to have had all season. Right then, let's go. Jacob, thank you very much. Well, not for the last 5 minutes. And thanks to everyone that's joined us live as well. Do make sure you subscribe with your post notifications on YouTube and leave a comment as well. And do go back and watch the pod that Greg and I did earlier, looking back at Chelsea, where Greg was a lot more positive than Jacob just was in that last segment. There, if you're listening via audio, some lovely reviews. I had another look after this morning's show. There's been some brilliant reviews. So keep that up. We'll have more of them, please. More 5 stars, and do the same on Spotify if you can even do it on Spotify. That would be much appreciated. If you're traveling to Selhurst Park, travel safely. And if you see Jacob telling him to stop being so negative, let's go then. Thank you very much. Only one thing left to say. Up the Villa.